Welcome to the Fusionary Health podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you. Her name is Julietta Wenzel. And Julietta and I have known each other for many years. I'd say about 8 to 9 years now. And she's what I call an OG practitioner of Fusionary. Because in the first year where I met those first few people who took a chance on me and were open to what I was so evangelistic about and in love with, Julietta was one of my original supporters. So thank you, Julietta, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And it is my pleasure to support you. And I'm down for supporting any woman that I see that is living in their passion and trying to create something special in this world. And just seeing you from day one and the passion that you had about what you do, there was no way I could not support you. And I wish I could support you more, but as a small practitioner, my scope of being able to expose your products to people is kind of small, but I sing your praises on a regular basis. Anyone watching this on video, I've got some of her products here on my shelf behind me. And your products are amazing, wonderful, beautiful healing tools. So thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing what you bring to this world, Shivani.
Thank you. Thank you, Julietta. Same to you. Right back at you. And what I'd love to share with everyone today is Julietta was originally a physical therapist for many, many, many years. That was her scope of work. And even when she was functioning within that box called physical therapy, she wasn't really functioning within a box. She was pushing and exploding that box outwards, always studying new tools, new modalities, bringing new things in. I remember when I visited your physical therapy office, I was like, I've never seen half the things in this office or people doing half of this stuff to children and other people. You really brought modalities together. So will you share right at the top of the podcast, what brought you into being a physical therapist and healer? And just so you know, guys, she's no longer in PT. She's moved on, graduated into a whole entirely new, different profession that we're going to get into today.
Yeah. So I graduated in 1991, just a little while ago. And my first job straight out of the gate was I was hired by a local hospital to be the physical therapist on the acute neuro floor. And so acute neuro, that means people who've just had strokes, people who've just had brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, also a lot of MS, Parkinson's, which also put me in a pen. I'm like, they realize I just graduated and you're going to give me the hardest patients. Are you nuts? And, but actually I have to say in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I had some really great mentors to work with and really taught me to be fearless and to be the strongest source of hope and advocacy for people who are really told that, you know what, your life is going to pretty much suck from this point on. And, I used to, there was this, when I first moved to Miami, I was in an acute, not acute, a subacute rehabilitation for, I work primarily with brain injury, which also primarily means working with young men, between their late teens and early 30s, because that's when they're crazy and they do things that result in brain injury.
Outside of sports, you're saying, in sports, yeah, they cause those injuries, but also outside of it.
Also, and just it's a lot of motor vehicle accidents, but also, down here in Florida, gunshot wounds, just crazy stuff. Everything. But, the doctors would tell these patients, oh, you're never going to walk again. And then they'd come to therapy and we'd be working and they'd be like, well, the doctor told me I was never going to walk again. So what's the point? And I'd be like, do you want to walk again? And they'd be like, well, of course I want to walk again. And I'm like, well, guess what my favorite thing to do is to prove those doctors wrong. And there would be days I'd be walking down the hallway and we'd be passing that doctor that told the patient that they wouldn't walk. And the doctor's eyes would be bulging out of their head. What the heck happened here? And, yeah, some of that comes from just pushing limits and, I think so often in our world, whatever Western medicine tells the patient that's what they believe to be true. And to me, that's like, you know, at least if you don't believe that for yourself,
Yeah,
don't wipe out all their hope by telling them it's impossible.
totally.
But then, like, through all of that, eventually I also ended up working with kids with special needs, something that when I went to school I never thought I would do. But a job opportunity came along that was in a very holistic realm, and I wanted to go work at this facility, but they're like, well, we also treat children, so you're going to have to treat children. And I'm like, wait, what?
Mm.
But I wanted this job because they had acupuncture on staff, they had biofeedback on staff, they did meditation there, yoga there. Like, it was a very holistic place. But they also dealt a lot with brain injury and children with special needs. And so that was kind of where I jumped into that.
Got it.
And for my entire career, I was always looking for, okay, the stuff that we learned, it helps some people, but it doesn't help everybody. So I was always searching for something more, something more. There's, and so flash forward, several years later, I opened my own clinic and partnered with another PT and, just started offering a lot of special modalities for people with neurologic deficits. And so hence, like, the equipment that you saw in my office was TheraSuit equipment and, so TheraSuit, quantum reflex integration, red cord, like all these interesting modalities. And then also, like, I'm not an acupuncturist, I don't put needles in anybody, but there's something called microcurrent point stimulation by a company called AcuMed that uses microcurrent to stimulate acupuncture points. So while I can't needle somebody, I can still use these energetic points and stimulate them with microcurrent instead of with a
Sure.
needle. And then it also led me down to the path to connecting with something called applied kinesiology, which is
Mm,
muscle testing. And so essentially, it's a way for a practitioner to have a conversation with your body to find out, A, what's wrong with your body, because whatever somebody comes into you telling you about, those are just the symptoms. That's not the
true.
actual problem. And so
True.
you use applied kinesiology to tap into what is the actual source of this symptom, because it might not be anywhere located near where this problem you're experiencing is.
Sure.
But then you can also use applied kinesiology to tap in and find out what is the solution to correct this problem. And
I find that so interesting, this idea of muscle testing and applied kinesiology. I went to my acupuncturist once. I have an amazing acupuncturist in Delray who I went to during my pregnancies. And once I was feeling really bad. I just didn't feel good, couldn't understand what was wrong. She goes, let's do some muscle testing on you. I have someone in the office who does it. And that woman tested me and was like, okay, you think you're supposed to be taking all these supplements. You should actually take these supplements. And this one doesn't suit you. And this one you need to take double. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, your body gives you those answers. And it was kind of the first time. And it's interesting. I've been to trade shows where chiropractors will walk by and they'll pick up the product and they'll muscle test on site with the product. And I'm like, oh, this is so fascinating. So when you do that with people, what you're saying is the insights that you get are the true answer, not just their thoughts on what the answer could
yeah,
be
because
or
we're
where
not
they can be.
asking their brain, we're asking their body,
Right.
you know. We tend to think that our brain has the answers for us,
Right.
and it stores the information that we learn, but I'm sorry, a lot of what we learn isn't right.
True.
you know and oftentimes this is the problem with any practitioner. They're going back to their head to, okay, everything that I've learned in my studies up to this moment, I'm going to think about this and this and that. Okay, oh, most people that have this problem, this is the solution for them.
Right.
And it's always most people. Yeah, not everybody. Why? Because it's not necessarily the solution. And so
True.
when you tap into a person and ask their body, what is the solution for you? Then And, like you were talking, maybe your body needs B12.
Right.
You're like taking B12, but your body's not absorbing it. It's like that might not be the right B12 for you. Go out and find the B12 that is the right B12 for you, and then your body can take advantage of it. But
Correct. So
hence
yeah,
why there's so many different products out there.
it's true because we are different. We are bio-individual. Not everything is going to work on everybody. So when it comes to your practice, I know that you had that PT practice for a long time, and then in 2020 things changed and you switched over to opening an entirely new practice. And for a while there, you called yourself Magical PT, which was definitely more appropriate to who you are, because you are magical and the services you were doing were not just typical. So will you share a little bit about that journey and what you do now?
Yeah, and it's funny because it happened in 2020 and everybody thought it was like a byproduct of the pandemic, but I actually had made the decision before the pandemic started. I was in business with another PT and we co-owned 2 clinics and we had staff, and I had just gotten to the space where I was just exhausted of trying to keep things going the way they were. And our medical model here in the US is really not designed. It's designed around insurance companies and
Yeah,
pharmaceutical companies, everybody making money and not necessarily looking at what is best for the patient, and
true.
also not looking at what's best for the practitioners. Like, people don't realize like
Yeah.
how heavy this is on the practitioner. I mentioned to you before we got on camera here, the career expectancy right now of a physical therapist is 9 years. The fact that I made it 32 years as a physical therapist is a miracle itself. But
Yeah.
a lot of this comes from, like, in the model out there, like if we're dealing with insurance and everything, a PT's got to treat 4 patients at a time to
Right.
be able to financially like keep the clinic afloat.
Right.
And the way I practice to really get to the source of people's problems and change things,
Yeah.
I can't see 4 people at once. I can only see one person at a time.
Right.
And I mean, the big difference too is most of people who come to see me, I see them, 1 to 3 times, unless they've got a really significant chronic problem that we have to peel away a lot of layers. But, like the typical person comes in and it's like, oh, my back is not good. And a lot of them, if they're like regular clients of mine, I just need to see them once and then send them on their way. If somebody new who's not been balanced out by me and stuff, I say 2, maybe 3 visits. I laugh sometimes. Like, I had one person recently who came and they saw me. They had a shoulder problem and a knee problem.
Mm.
And in one visit, we fixed the shoulder problem, but they weren't coming back because I didn't fix the knee in one visit. And I was like, what? That
You're
makes a
like,
lot of sense.
I
Okay.
got one thing really fixed. Let's be happy about the one.
But
Normally, if
like,
you
not
went to
why not come
PT,
back for a second visit so we can finish off the knee? But
yeah,
instead of like being all excited about the shoulder that's better now, they're
yeah,
still complaining about the knee
yeah,
that I didn't fix in one visit. But I'm
yeah.
like,
And the thing is, like, had you
go to
gone
someone else and have them fix you in one visit. Like,
exactly. Go to regular PT. It's funny. I have gone through all of these things over time because I had my own journeys with having my pregnancies. I gained 40 pounds with Anya. I learned my lesson. Don't do that the second time. Really work at it. But that weight on my 5 foot frame caused my back to spasm after I had her. I had plantar fasciitis. So I was going to physical therapy, chiropractic, personal training, trying to fix my problems. And it's funny because the PT, who I know very well in an office that I go to, he's always like, "Are we here for our annual Come to Jesus meeting, Shivani? Because you won't come back to me, but every year you usually have like one acute issue for which you want help." And we always laugh together because he knows he's no longer my modality. Like he's not the one I would go to. I'd go to medical massage or chiro or acupuncture or healing because I know now my body has a different level of healing that it needs. Like I know what works for me and what doesn't anymore. And I think that's so important for each of us to individually understand.
absolutely.
And so in your
Absolutely.
case, what are some of the healing modalities that you reach for into your practice now that your focus is completely a healer and not that
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah, yeah. Well, the base always starts with applied kinesiology. We're going to have a conversation with your body and see what is out of balance and how do we put it back into balance. And so some of my work, sometimes I'm still doing work on the physical body, work on the joints, work on the muscles, but sometimes it comes up, this imbalance is because something's off in the acupuncture meridians. And even when I'm treating through the acupuncture meridians, I'm still muscle testing to find out what do we have to do in the acupuncture system to bring your body into balance.
Sure.
And but sometimes it's emotional, and I use emotion charts and the chakras to find out, like, where is this emotional problem coming from. And sometimes it's a past life problem, sometimes it's an ancestral problem. But interestingly, it was, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or so ago, when I was still practicing as a PT. I've had spirit guides that have communicated with me for as long as I remember. And I was sitting here in session with someone, and the stuff that was coming up was more on just a spiritual awakening, enlightenment kind of level. And like, we did what we did. A lot of it was conversation that we had. And like, after we had gotten through this particular problem, I sat and took this big breath, and my spirit guide said to me, "You thought you were here to help people with their physical pain. So your real purpose here is to remove the obstacles for them to become the greatest version of themselves." They're like, oftentimes the pain is one of those obstacles getting in the way, but pain is never like the issue here. Pain is what is keeping them small, is what's keeping them from being their greatest self. And that's what you're here to do. And it was like that moment that made me realize, like, yes, I need to release the label of physical therapist. I need to release my licensure. And so, and what I've done is something that many alternative practitioners around the country are doing, to avoid being stuck inside our box, is I've created a ministry. And so I'm now completely in the private sector. So when someone comes to see me, you become a member of my ministry, and what happens in the ministry stays in the ministry. And so, it's all whatever we decide on our private relationship together here, nobody else has anything to say about it. It's whatever you and I are in agreement with, that's what happens here.
And I love what you said there about pain. For me, pain has always been one of those things I run away from. When I have plantar fasciitis or any pain that distracts me in my body, I grew up in this body where I was always sick. And so being sick always sucked. And I always thought, when I'm not sick, when I finally figure this out for myself, I'm going to teach people how to be that way, because it's not fair that some of us are given these templates of sickness, or I don't even know how to call it, but like dishealth, like a lack of health. And so pain to me is this distraction where we have this ability to be in alignment. Body, mind, and spirit in alignment is the entire goal of Ayurveda. And I can tell, and I'm sure you in the audience can tell, those moments when you're like, oh my God, my life is amazing and everything's amazing and I feel amazing. And those moments, those high points, I love those. And I always think, like, how do I create more magical moments in my life? How do I stay in that frequency and that vibration of joy and health? And so much of why I teach what I teach and create what I create is, let me get you out of pain. That's just step one. Let's just get the lower level foundation done. Out of pain, so physically you're not distracted by it. Then emotionally, let's talk about the adaptogen. So foundation, I get them out of pain with turmeric. Then emotions, let's talk about adaptogens and plants and sleep. And I'm more in the physical realm, and I know you're in the more emotional, spiritual realm of like, what do we need to do to clean and clear that space? And I love working with different healers because I agree with you. Between our chakras and our ancient past and a lot of things that kind of cling on to us, if we don't clear our fields, we might not have the access that we want to have in this lifetime. And so I've been lucky enough to meet some great teachers, great mentors, and do a lot of that work. I'm sure I still have a lot more to do. But the work I have done has given me a different level of, I think, joy, because my joy levels now are higher than ever. I'm in there more than ever. I sometimes walk outside in nature and I'm like, gosh, do you realize how good your life is? Just living in that like ecstatic bliss space. And so when it comes to what you're doing, I very much resonate with, I wish everyone, the whole reason for the podcast is I wish everyone knew all the healing tools we have access to in this world right now, because each of us has a different tool we need to pick up to get where we want to go.
Yeah, and we spoke about this off camera. I truly believe even most conditions that people believe aren't healable actually are. You just have to truly want to heal.
Yes.
And I know that sounds stupid because everyone goes like, who would not want to heal? Everybody wants to heal. On a conscious level, maybe yes, but there are a lot of people on a subconscious level, they don't want to heal. And they don't want to be well because of who they will have to be if they are well.
So interesting.
And I mean, I've seen it multiple times, especially with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, that people would come to the clinic, they would be in wheelchairs, and within a few weeks, we'd have them start walking again. And you would think like they would be so excited.
Yeah.
No, they would all quit therapy. Because
Wow.
all of a sudden it's like my identity is me in this wheelchair and people like having to help me. And what happens if I'm no longer in my wheelchair and people don't have to help me anymore? And
You don't get the same attention. You don't get the love. That's so interesting.
yeah, I've seen, and not just, I don't want to pick on people with MS.
Sure.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of other diagnoses where I see the same thing. And it's like, you're not getting better because on some level you don't want to get better. And, I have people that they get to a certain level and they're like, yes, I want to get better. And I don't understand why I'm not getting better. And like when they're ready, then I can actually bring to their awareness that they're not okay with getting well. I had someone in a couple weeks ago. He's like, yeah, I think I'm 75% better. He's like, I'm so much better, but like I'm just 75% better. And I said, well, let's ask your body. I'm okay being 100% better. And his body tested negatively to that.
Oh,
And so then we cleared out some things that were attached to that.
right.
And I said, come back in a month and let's see, like, let your body process that. What
Yeah.
we just, so I'm very curious to see where he'll be. But it was like, here he had been like, just like moping around. Like, I got this stupid problem that won't go away and nobody's helping me with it. But yet he was getting this help. And like everything that I was seeing in his body was getting so much better. Like when you looked at just his body, it's like, everything's balanced here. Like why aren't you 100% better? Oh, because you're not okay with being 100% better. Let's get you there.
And this is such a profound thought, and I want to stay with it for a moment. If you are subconsciously not wanting to get better, you could put so much money, time, and effort into getting better, and it never, ever works. And how many of us identify with certain thought forms around who we are? We self-label, and then we attach ourselves to those self-labels to our own detriment. Like, it's funny because in this world, I repeat my story a lot. And then I have to remind myself, your story is old. Like, that's not your story now. But I always say, like, I had no immune system. My body was always weak. And so I still, a lot of the time, am functioning from that place. Like, someone will sneeze and I'm like, I'm going to have to defend myself now. And it's like, you did so much work. You know that you just went through a pandemic scot-free. Like, come on. But it's almost an attachment to this idea is like a security blanket of like, oh, but I'm weaker. Oh, but I need to be taken care of. Like, we can self-identify that way and then potentially never heal, even if physically we look like we're healed. So have you seen that before?
Oh, so many times, so many times. And you have to be ready to let go of your stories for sure.
Yeah.
But stories they're not easy to let. Yeah. Especially if you've held on to a story for so long, to let it go can be really, really hard.
And what if
But when you're ready, you can do it.
And what if some of those stories are ancestral? Like, I've done some work where I have a funny thing I'll share with you. I will not leave the house or any place without food on me. I carry food like a very odd pack rat. So I probably have only recently let go of this a little bit just because I'm adult enough to know that you can buy food everywhere at all times. But generally, like if you open any of my bags, there's nuts. There can't be granola bars anymore because I'm gluten free, but there would have been granola bars and stuff because I'm always so scared. Like, what if there's a traffic jam and you're stuck? You'll starve. What if the plane goes in flight and they won't land? You're stuck. You will starve to death. And so we did ancestral work. This mentor of mine and we realized, like in a past life, all my people were starved, and it's so devastating. I can't imagine not having food on me. I can't imagine people going hungry or even myself starving to death. So it's just interesting, these ideas that we carry into this life.
Well, that we transfer them from one generation to the next through cellular memory. Like it's completely makes sense that we have that. This morning, it was so interesting. One of my clients brought in her mother to see me, and her mother, English is not her first language, and I did not speak the language that was her primary language. So the daughter stayed in with us for the session, and it was so interesting. Like when I was doing more of the energetic work, this stuff was coming up for the daughter. And like, we came to this realization that this was like the ancestral suffering and trauma that the women in their family had gone through for generations and generations. And it's like, okay, you ladies get to see that you are here now safe. And it is okay for you to release that ancestral trauma that you've been carrying, and send gratitude to those women of your past, because whatever they went through, like it brought you here today. And let them know that everything that they went through was worth it, because your family lives on here in you two powerful women. But it's time to release that trauma that you've been carrying. And it was just like this most beautiful, powerful moment. But it was interesting because I seen the daughter by herself here, and this ancestral stuff didn't really come up until the mother and daughter were here together in the room. And the session was supposed to be the mom session, and it primarily was, but it really ended up being for both of them and for their family lineage. So it was beautiful.
Absolutely. And people forget sometimes. I find it so fascinating. My kids are still young, they're in elementary and middle school. We forget how much our children are our templates. I think in the West, when we have kids, we're like, I had kids, they are them, I am me, they're going to become adults, and I can't control them fully. In India, we have a very different approach. We're like, they're ours forever. They will listen forever. They're part of my life forever, or else, or else. And so it's just interesting because when my daughter Anya was young, she got diagnosed with something. And I find the whole Western hemisphere is going to have, or tends to have, children who have something that's a struggle for them. Anyway, Anya had something, and so I went running around to the doctors and everything to understand it better. And we did a stool test on her. She was an exact copy of my gut. When the naturopath read me her results, I literally started laughing. I was like, "You are reading to me as if you're reading my report to me." She goes, "Well, it makes sense. Of course, your daughter would have your gut. Like, they're your children." And that was like a light bulb moment for me where I realized, wow, when I have big complaints throughout my life about my children, take the mirror, look at yourself, and understand that this is healing that needs to happen at both levels. And you see that sometimes because whenever moms, I won't name myself, but moms and friends go to therapy for their kids, they're like, the kid needs therapy. And I always laugh because we have many mutual friends who are like, no. The dad need therapy. It's not the child who needs the therapy. It's the parent. And what are you doing upon the child? And so I know that you have worked with children a lot. So have you seen that even our children are coming into this world burdened with all the stuff we are? And if we don't invest in their healing, then they just play that out in this more polluted, toxic, sometimes heavier world.
Well, and to me, I see two things happening here. Like the parents who come to me also then end up bringing their children to me.
Sure.
And I have clients they're adults now, but like adults that I started seeing when they were like 6, 7, 8 years old, and now they're in their 20s, and they still come back to me because they learned the importance of keeping themselves in balance.
Yeah.
And like I laugh, I have one kid, he's away in college, but he can't wait for break to come so that he can come home and he can come have an appointment with me to get balanced.
Nice.
And so there are children that are learning the importance of self-care. But also out there in the world, like the thing that just like breaks my heart is how medicated children are. And
True.
like everybody's labeled with ADHD,
ADHD,
being on the spectrum,
allergies, autism.
all of
Um,
this.
there,
And it's
I had a book I wanted to write called The Five A's, because when I wrote my book, The Conscious Pregnancy, when I was doing my master's in Ayurvedic sciences, my thesis was my book. And I couldn't find a family at that time who didn't have a chronic disease that required medication in their household. And I thought, wow, we're going to raise a generation of women, moms, who are like in this dysbiotic, anxiety ridden trauma, trying to heal their children. The good side effect of it is we're becoming organic green warrior moms around health, but forced to do it as opposed to out of desire, trying to heal these kids in this world. And that definitely impacted me. As I wanted a healthy pregnancy, I still had a kid who came out with one of the five A's. Autoimmune was one of the five words. And I was like, how after all the work could this still happen?
Well,
um
and the thing is too, is like no matter how careful you are in choosing your food, choosing the products you have in your home, we still like you have to go outside and you're not living in this practice bubble, so you are exposed to things. So it's really difficult. But they do make a huge difference. We were talking about my dad earlier.
yeah.
He has the rheumatism marker and you know, ended up being suggested to go see one. And, when he finally got the appointment, the doctor's like, I don't understand how you don't have any symptoms. And, she started talking to him about his, how he lives his life, and he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke. And he grows his own vegetables and, gets his eggs from my brother and sister-in-law's, free
Wow.
range chickens. And, so he's not participating in life like the majority of
Yeah.
Americans are out there. So here he has every reason to have rheumatism, and
Yes.
he doesn't because
Of
he
his
doesn't do
lifestyle.
all these things that trigger it.
Right.
And so many of these most of the A's that you're talking about, like a lot of us could be there,
Sure.
but unless you have the triggers that make it active, you don't.
Right.
But out there in the world right now, it's so difficult to stay toxin free, stay trigger free because it's everywhere.
I know. I find it's a very active role you have to play. And I wish it wasn't so active. A lot of my friends think I'm crazy because of how I choose to live. And I'm like, guys, I have no choice. Like I can't drink a soda. I can't just eat pizza. Like I used to live like that. I can't imagine having that quality of life. So, and I can't wreck my immune system. I worked real hard to build this like vessel. Now I'm keeping it. This is just the maintenance plan. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I think we forget. I think we want to just, like, for example, this morning my husband got out of the shower. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was sitting up in bed on my iPhone. I was like, "Oh, I'm ordering all the groceries." He goes, "I would never imagine that my wife sitting in bed at 6 in the morning before she wakes up the kid is ordering the groceries." And I was like, "Well, I have a packed day. I'm on camera 8 hours today, but I need the food, or we have no healthy food in this house for the weekend." And I was on Instacart, on Sprouts, and really thinking through, okay, we need variety of vegetables, nutrient density. I need the eggs that are pasture raised. I need this. Oh, I heard this almond milk is better. And literally studying the ingredients item by item to make sure none had inflammatory oils. And I got the order done. But I wish that I could, and I probably can if I worked on it, source my eggs from someone I knew, source more of my vegetables from my local farmer, found someone who would bake the bread for our home, because I think it's that returning to nature and to natural ingredients and real people making our food that we're going to get to having our bodies in better balance.
Well, my hope is too that one day, because people like us that are demanding these things that at one point, like, you won't have to work so hard. Like, the food at the grocery store will come from the local farmer. It won't contain all these chemicals and inflammatory ingredients. And, people are like, it doesn't mean anything when you buy it organic. And I'm like, regardless of how actually organic this product is,
Yeah.
and since we're coming up to election season here, I said the most important way that you vote is not on election day when you go and you cast that vote. The most important vote that you make every single day is how you spend every penny you own. That is how you're making your vote. And so when you go out and buy organic, even if that organic product isn't exactly as organic as we think it is, you're at least casting your vote to tell the supermarket owners, the farmers, the agricultural industry, you're letting everybody know, this is important to me. I want more of this. And if enough of us vote that way,
Yep.
eventually the supermarkets will shift. But as long as you
Absolutely.
keep going, it doesn't matter, it's all going to be bad anyway. Well, you're not being part of the change that we would like to see in this world.
True. And we all have that opportunity. We can support local, we can support small business, we can support women owned businesses sometimes. Like I have a team in my supplement company. We are a woman owned business because it's mine, and we're all women of color. And I think that's really cool that we have a diverse small business. And the mission is we're going to change the world and we're going to change our lives. Like it's so important to me that everyone on my team gets to be healthy. Like I'm more worried about all their health and then all the customers who order from us their health, and then who are we not helping yet who's taking a solution that doesn't serve them and they could be taking ours. So
I love that
Julietta,
you bring up, I'm gonna, because
yeah,
this will segue into something else that we want to talk about,
sure.
but talking about supporting women. And so a little bit that Egypt is like
Yes, that's where I was going
one of
next.
my happy places.
Yeah.
And so I first went, there's so many lessons about Egypt. 2017, I finally went for the first time for my 50th birthday. And I remember I met my Egyptologist friend, Mary, probably 15 years before that. And every year I would say, I don't have enough money to go. I don't have enough money to go. I don't have enough money to go.
Yeah.
And finally, I got to 2017. I'm like, I'm turning 50 this year. Like, I'm going to Egypt. If I have to rob a bank, if I have to make my dad pay for it, if I have to start a GoFundMe, I am going to Egypt this year.
Yeah.
And as soon as I declared I was doing it, I got offered a teaching a course, it's like teaching a weekend course abroad. And essentially what I got paid to teach that course paid for my trip to Egypt.
Nice.
But so I get to Egypt, and one of the places that we visit very early on in the trip is Philae Temple. And Philae Temple is to the goddess Isis. And so beautiful, beautiful space,
Sure.
enjoying, loving every minute of it, meditating there, soaking up all the energy. That night, I go into my room, and while I'm in Egypt, every night before I go to bed, I spend some time meditating, connecting with my spirit guides, hearing their messages for me. And that night, I'm sitting there, and my spirit guides are talking to me, and then Isis comes in. And she says to me, she said, it is up to women to save the world right now, to save humanity.
I agree.
It's not that the men are bad or incapable. They are so just drawn in and sucked down into the toxic masculine world that we've created. And trust
Yeah.
me, the men didn't create it alone. We created this together with them. We as women allowed this imbalance to occur. But it is stuck in this masculine energy. And we as women are the only ones that have the ability to heal ourselves and bring back the sacred feminine, to restore balance to the masculine feminine. And, again, this is not male bashing. This is, sacred masculine energy is just as beautiful as sacred feminine energy, but we're stuck in that toxic masculinity. And the only thing that's going to bring the restoring of balance back is if we women heal ourselves and we bring ourselves and our sacred feminine into balance. So I love what you're doing and helping empowering that feminine energy
Yeah.
in the business world, because, that's part of the life that we live out there. And money is controlling so much.
Yeah.
And we bring back that feminine and use the feminine energy to move
Right.
the money.
Yeah.
Think about
It's
what can happen.
it's so interesting. I honestly, I find it so challenging. Like, I know how to just do the work. When I commit to a plan, I will execute it. I'm so passionate. I will stay in the game. I have a lot of tenacity, I find, and a lot of persistence. But the game as it is, it's not that it's not built for women. I shouldn't say it that way, but it's rough. Like, it feels unsustainable is how I would explain it. So I have
It
to
is
dig.
unsustainable. We have to bring the balance back.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to like remember I have a dosha. I live a seasonal circadian schedule. It's okay to take certain seasons and slow down in them. The business won't just die or implode. You'll make the impact. It's just so interesting that that idea of bringing in your power as sacred feminine is, I find, the best way to move the needle forward and not create it to be such a racetrack game or like a zero sum game. We live in such a hustle culture, hustle and grind, and it feels so masculine. And so it's almost like as women, we have to deprogram consistently those thought forms out of ourselves and remind ourselves, I don't thrive that way. I don't function that way. And yet we can all rise into that same place of whatever it is we're seeking, but we don't have to get there the same way as men and women, and honor that.
Exactly. One of the big ways that I'm helping women understand, like, how men are the doers, we are the beers. And so think about, the female body is what creates life.
True.
But when you're growing that life inside of you, you're not sitting there doing it. You're not like putting it together like you build a building or you would build a car.
Right.
You are just being, and it is manifesting and growing and being created inside you. Like,
True.
that is the feminine way of
Right.
creating,
Right.
is by being.
Yeah.
And yes, we have to do some doing. Like, if we don't do anything, at some point you do have to give birth to it,
Sure.
but that's like this one-time thing. Like, okay, now I got to push. Okay, I push, and then it's born,
Yeah.
but there's all that gestational period that you are being.
Yeah.
And, yeah, this whole, like, we're all going to do ourselves to the grave if we keep going this way. And it sucks the joy out of life. And joy is our birthright. We are meant to be here all about joy and love. And it's time to bring it back.
I agree with you. And even my mothering style has changed in recent years because I think we all evolve and change. But one of my primary things that changed was I used to have my kids in a lot of activities. I was like, they should do X, Y, Z, A, and B, all the things when they were little, which is such a waste of time and money. And then now I just tell myself, listen, you're meant to go home and hug them. You're just meant to be with them. You regulate them by cuddling them. That's it. That's your job. Love them. All the other stuff will come. My kids have tried everything on earth. They're already over all of it. So I'm like, okay, we're going to eat, we're going to hang out, we're going to move in nature, and we're going to cuddle. Cool. I love this job. This is great. This totally fits the amount of energy I have left in the tank at the end of my day anyways. But if we could just evolve, not that I'm the most evolved human at all, but if we could just move ourselves into that space of what do I really need to do? Oh, I just need to be my purest self. And it's interesting because if you raise intuitive children, they can tell immediately if you're off. So my kids sometimes are like, oh, like they'll reject me because they can see me coming in with 100-mile-an-hour tornado energy. Or Anya will say to me, I don't like your energy. I'm not touching you. I'm not cuddling you.
Oh.
And I'm like, give me a minute. And I'll just walk away, settle down, ground back into the earth, get rid of whatever I'm dealing with in my brain. I'm probably just beating myself up over some thoughts in business or whatever. I'll come back. I'm like, okay, I'm here. And then we can be together. And so I love that you are part of this world of bringing us these tools, helping us see the world in a different way, healing ourselves and our baggage that we carry that impacts all of our relationships. And will you share a little bit about these retreats you're doing? Because I know you're doing one in Mexico and you do one in Egypt. And I'm sure over your lifetime, you're going to be doing even more. But just so you know, I've always said I will not go to Egypt unless I go with a healer who actually knows how to connect me to the energies that are there. Because I've read an amazing book series about Queen Selene and Isis that has me so craving going to Egypt, but with the right person who can bring us into those portals of energy and magic that exist.
Yeah. So part of my new, one of the messages that I've gotten from my guys is like, yes, it's great, the one-on-one healing work that you do, but you do have to reach more people as well. And so how do I do that? Workshops, classes, retreats. So we do have, not this weekend, next weekend, we have a local retreat here in Fort Lauderdale, just a 3-day weekend called Activate the Goddess Within. And we will be working with Isis and Hathor and Green Tara and, really accessing that feminine power of being and helping the women that attend this retreat tap into their inner powerful self that doesn't have to do more. She gets to be more just by tapping into that, her internal truth.
Right.
And so, yes, this November, we're going to be going to Egypt. And I agree with you 1,000%. Like there's many different ways to do Egypt, but
Yeah.
Egypt energetically, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on my experiences in Egypt and, like that goddess, Isis goddess coming in and delivering that message to me. It was just like one little teeny tiny piece of what I experienced there. And since having that experience, like it is my passion to share Egypt with people. And
Awesome.
I hope we'll see what happens, but I would really like to be going every year
Absolutely.
with someone. But, if it speaks to anybody, this November, we are heading over there for our first true retreat over there. So we will go and we'll see all the sites, the pyramid, the Sphinx, the temples, but we're also going to be spending some time over there in meditation, working specifically with the Egyptian blue lotus, which that's a whole story. There's a lot of blue lotus out there in the world right now. It is Asian blue lotus. It's not the ancient Egyptian blue lotus. So, and not to say that the Asian blue lotus is a wonderful, beautiful plant, but it is not the same plant as the Egyptian blue lotus, which there is not much left of in this world. But we do have access to a Egyptian blue lotus pond. And I first smelt that flower in 2017 when I went over there. I've smelt a lot of flowers in my lifetime. I like literally when I breathe that in and like the olfactory system goes straight to the brain, I felt it activating things inside I was just like, whoa.
Wow.
Smelled a lot of flowers, but I have never experienced this before. And so the fact that we get to have time and we're going to do a blue lotus tea ceremony and there's going to be a lot of special things happening besides just seeing the amazing sights and experiencing the beautiful energies of Egypt. So I really hope to make that an annual event. Last year we went to San Miguel de Allende for Dia de los Muertos, and we talked to them about ancestry and honoring our ancestors, and that's one thing that their culture has. It's like they honor their deceased, their ancestors, and so tapping into that, honoring that, and healing any of those ancestral wounds that come through. So we're connected with a beautiful retreat center over there that is just magical. So Day of the Dead 2025, we plan to be there, but there will be a lot of like US, either local South Florida and also other places in the US. We'll be having slightly shorter and more accessible retreats for people who can't participate in, because going to Egypt is a big undertaking.
It is.
And
but I think sometimes we know the places that are calling to us. And I will say this, I think it's so important that you go. Like anyone can go to Egypt and see a pyramid. It's there. It's like you can go to India and see the Taj Mahal. You can go to Bali and just frolic in the waters on the beach. But to understand the depth of layers and transcendence and portals and dimension access and spirit access that we have is a whole different ballgame. And that language and that understanding was not something I even had awareness of until the last couple of years. And the more I make space for it, the more my life changes. And so I have said that many times since reading those books. I've probably read those books 20 times because they're fiction and I love historical fiction. And I kept saying, waiting for my person. I'm waiting for my person. I'm waiting for this person to come because Egypt is powerful. Like to go sit with the gods and goddesses in Egypt and have those experiences and messages. That's transcendent, and that's really cool that you're doing that now. So it's my plan. I'm coming to one of these. Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you're doing it because I've already heard those cool stories of what happened. And I was just flabbergasted. And I was like, whoa, I don't know if I would have those. I'm not you, but wow.
Well, and part of the reason I'm doing this is, on that first trip and, Mary, who's the Egyptologist that we go there, she is very tied into the mystical side of ancient Egypt and the goddesses and all of that. And, that first trip in 2017, like she goes twice a year, every year with tour groups. She takes people over there. And the year that I decided to go, the tour that I decided to go on, nobody else signed up for. So it was just me and her, which was magical in itself. And I do tend to have that, even when we were there, like everybody just like scattered, like wherever I would show up, I would have the space to myself. I was inside the Great Pyramid. Like people pay thousands of dollars for private time inside the Great Pyramid. I was in there by myself with just my guide. She didn't go with me because she's like, I've been inside there like a cajillion times, and she's getting a little older. So it's a climb to get up to the King's Chamber. Like it's not like just an easy. You do have to get a little bit physically in shape to go over to Egypt if you want to experience everything.
Sure.
And so she's like, you just go. When you get to the door, they're going to give you a guide. He'll take you up there and I'll be out here waiting when you come back.
Yeah.
And so like, there's this whole line of people and I get up, it's my turn. They sign me a guide. We go up. And actually like, while I had to wait a little bit to go up because the way in and out is like one single lane. So we were waiting for these people to come out. And then I went up and I was up there by myself. I mean, I wasn't looking at my clock, but I had all the time that I wanted by myself. Around the time I was ready to tell them like, okay, I'm ready to leave, these two other women came up. It was funny. They like brought food and they were offering me food. And I'm like, this is kind of cool, but like complete strangers in Egypt, I'm not accepting their food.
Yeah.
And so when I came back down and I told Mary, I was like, there was nobody but me and my guide. And she's like, that's impossible. Look at the line of people waiting to get in. So I don't know how they like stopped other people from coming in, but I was up there by myself. Like it's crazy.
That's amazing.
And even last time, so I went again with her in 2021 with a group of people. And I brought my boyfriend with me, one of my good friends and her daughter, and then a bunch of other people. And like most of the time, wherever we'd go anywhere, like the people would scatter. It would just be us. And it was like, Mary's always like, I don't know how you manage you just create your private time wherever you go.
That's awesome, though. I think that's magical that you create the space that you need for your own experiences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
sure.
awesome. I love that. Well, Julietta, I feel like I could talk to you forever because there's actually so much here that we could get into Egypt. So if you're one of those people who's like, I want to know more, contact Julietta. She is the expert on these things. And how can they find you?
So my website is bodyandsoulministries.love, LOVE. Awesome. Everyone's always like, you can have a .love. I'm like, yes, you can have a .love.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
And also I have a lot of stuff. So I also have a podcast.
Awesome.
You were on the podcast a while back. We should probably have you on again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And It's called Voices of the Goddess, and
Yeah.
the website there is votgpodcast.com.
Awesome.
And a lot of the events and retreats, those primarily live there just because it's easier for me to update them on that website versus the ministry website. But the ministry website's more about the healing work that I do, and all the fun stuff is on the podcast website. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I loved having you today. I love getting to dive into these topics. So much of my world is like medical science. So when I do get to talk about these topics that I love and enjoy and share them with others, that like, hey, there's a lot of dimensions to our health and well-being. And if you're not getting the answers you need or want in terms of your body or your health or how you feel, find the practitioner who's right for you, who can be your guide for this next phase of healing that you need. And I have worked with you, Julietta. I know so many people who love you and say, oh, you know Julietta too, as if you're like the best kept secret. So thank you for being you, and thank you for being on the podcast today.
thank you so much for having me. It's always wonderful chatting with you, and I'll come back anytime you want.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.